Good morning, Theo here. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel, go ahead and take the time that right. Growing every day. We're getting pretty close to that 100 mark, so that'd be cool. Today, we're going to go back to Activision Blizzard. Warcraft 3 Reforged, to be precise, and their esports team. Or I'm sorry, their esports team, their esports scene. Which is, yeah, it's got issues. So let's get into it, shall we? Yes, Warcraft 3 Reforged was released. It promised certain things that it did not deliver, as well as apparently having other issues, underlining issues, that still plague it today. Mainly disconnects. Apparently using the new Reforged graphics or whatever, the better HD, the remake, the whole point to it being redone to sell you the same game from like 15 years ago or 16, 17 years ago, with an updated look and all that good jazz, has issues, of course. And when it comes to the esports, when you go to a place like, where these things are happening, you expect stable connections. You expect proper rigs. You expect things to work, especially in a tournament level setting. It's one thing if, say, you were sitting at home and doing an online tournament or something, and everybody was sitting at home, and then there was an interrupt because somebody hit the pole outside or whatever. That's upsetting, of course, but when you actually go to these events, they're set up in a controlled environment, direct connections to one another and all that other good stuff to prevent cheating and other things as well, and to make the match as fair as possible. And why we're talking about this? Because this is a big deal. You can't have esports and then have things like this happening, especially when you've got like top players going at it one-on-one, and just one disconnect such as this can be crippling for a person's strategy and everything else, especially when it was working for them. So what exactly are we talking about? We're talking about Thorzan and Moon here. Moon being the top, or one of the top, South Korean players, I believe, and Thorzan being a very good Swedish player. Definitely one of the top, and it really came down to the point that it looked like Thorzan was about to win not once but twice in a row against Moon. However, Blizzard polish shined through, and yeah, we had issues. So after the launch, well below expectations, there was at least some small glimmer of hope for the aging RTS competitive scene. But the first major tournament for Reforged post-launch has finished under a cloud, with the tournaments beset with regular disconnects that forced matches to be restarted, and the problems only got worse as the tournament went on, with a potential upset win in the quarterfinals against one of the world's best Warcraft 3 players denied twice thanks to desync bugs. That is an issue. Listen, Blizzard, you make your game and you can't even make it stable enough to play. By the way, they did finish the matches. They had to play a total of like 4 or so matches or something. 4 or 5 matches just to actually finish it up. But, they had to revert to classic Warcraft 3 just to prevent the desync bug, which of course makes me think that maybe there's something wrong with the graphical settings that is causing it to desync. Need to get a fix on that, Blizzard. But the worst disconnect happened to the Swedish RTS gamer Marcus Thorzan in his best of 3 against South Korean Moon. Pretty sure that's Yang Yonho. Sorry if I butchered that. But Moon has been one of the world's best Warcraft 3 players and was at one point the most paid esports player in the world after signing a 500,000 contract back in 2018. And yeah, I mean, when you're going against the best of the best, every match counts. Every second counts. You're up. You know, you've got a lead on expansions. You got a lead on resources and everything else. You're whittling down their army. You're ahead on upgrades and stuff. All that stuff matters. Your strategies matter at that point. And when you disconnect mid-game, especially when you are winning in a game that could easily go one way or the other by just one slip up. It just takes one thing to be out of place, one thing to be unexpected. You know, that's a huge upset, especially in a scene like this, because by the time they finally got to a place where they could play a whole match through, Moon has already learned what Thorzan was trying to do at that point. He can make, you know, he can take what happened in the previous two games that got disconnected, that he never could finish, and actually use it against Thorzan as a result. But so being a 1-on-1 in the quarterfinals against what is probably the best Warcraft 3 player ever seen is a big deal. The Swede was on the verge of victory as well, being an expansion ahead and launching an attack on Moon's left flank with 20 more supply. Coupled with an upgrade advantage, Thorzan began whittling down Moon's army only to drop out, and that is this here. Wow, that would just be crushing to have that happen. Boom. Thorzan has left, Moon was victorious, all because of a disconnect. All because of a disconnect. That's this is why when you make a AAA game, you need to make sure it is in working order. I understand Activision doesn't really share that sentiment, but I honestly feel like old Blizzard wouldn't have let this happen. You know, they would have probably had set something up, or, you know, they probably would have thoroughly tested it, especially, you know, when you're there doing something like this. But, you know, would have thoroughly tested it and you wouldn't have had these issues. But, you know, in the second match, he had a massive gold advantage, apparently, you know, 1,000 plus, and had a lead on upgrades and far better versatility for the end game. The game dropped a second time. Look at that. We're just gonna sit here and watch it for a second, because I don't know what else to do but look at this and go how horrible it would be to just have that happen. Boom. Again. And it's always him disconnecting too, which is so weird. You know, one could take the tinfoil hat and place it on one's head and say Blizzard was trying their best to save their best. You know, that's always a possibility. That could be floated out there, that they didn't want Moon to lose and somebody forced to disconnect. Could be. However, I'd say that's probably unlikely, just due to the fact that it happened to multiple other people throughout the thing. But, you know, it's always a possibility. And the only way to actually get around it was to go back to the Warcraft 3 graphics, which I think at this point, if it had happened like 6 other times, you probably should have started the semifinals in classic Warcraft 3 graphics settings to begin with, because at that point you already know it's going to probably drop. But yeah, it wasn't just Moon and Thorzan that had suffered from desyncs throughout, apart from the 2 drops on the main stage and 6 separate matches across the group stages, and playoffs also had to be restarted, some of which was captured on the main Warcraft 3 stream. And yeah, I mean, look, if you know at this point that this is becoming an issue, you probably shouldn't do your semifinals on these settings, because you know it's going to drop. That just seems like a really asinine thing to do. Let's see, this one's a tad bit longer, but yeah, and then another drop, and another drop. Yeah, this would just be upsetting as all get out to sit there, especially when you're winning a match. Honestly, in my opinion, I think Thorzan was robbed of these wins, but that's just me. As for Thorzan, the community made sure to commemorate his performance. The US-based team, Dusut Gaming, started a GoFundMe for the Swede, pledging to pay Thorzan the $750 from the extra $1,500 he would have won by qualifying for the semifinals. So far, the Warcraft community has donated $400, and that's any more, of course. But while it won't give him the accolade he should have deserved, maybe it can raise awareness the community is behind him, and that we support him and stop this from happening to anyone in the future, especially at an offline major event. This seems like this is the least we can do, and that is probably the biggest thing here. This was an offline direct connection event, and we kept desyncing, and we kept, you know, disconnecting from one another. Should not have been a thing ever with that sort of a thing. So I don't know if maybe their switches are faulty or what the deal is. Maybe their cables are bad. But, you know, when you have to switch to your old, you know, 17-year-old classic version of the game just to be able to finish it, then I think is pretty telling that the thing that you pushed out was utter crap at that point. That's just me. Anyway, there is a GoFundMe out there. It raised beyond its actual thing. It was looking for $750, and at this point it has raised $880 to give, you know, Thorzan, you know, the prize money that he probably should have won. But yeah, you know, he's not going to have the accolade because, well, they had to restart the match multiple times, and every time he was winning, he didn't win. But I think everybody, including those in the community, can see that, you know, he probably would have won those two matches. He probably would have went 2-0 and came away with a win if it hadn't have disconnected like that. That's just... I don't even know what else to say, but other than how disappointing that actually is. Blizzard, fix your stuff. Anyway, let me know what you think down in the comments below, and I'll talk to you later. See ya. Hey, thanks for watching. Don't forget to leave a comment, smash that like button, and always subscribe for more. And of course, there are other videos floating around somewhere on the screen, so click one of those and see if you can find something that suits your fancy. Till then, I'll see you later. Bye.